Welcome in, everybody, for a nighttime chat with Darren Bailey and Aaron Delmar. Without further ado and without any wishy washy stuff, we're going to hand it over to our friends Aaron and Darren. Hi, fellas.
Well,
Good
good
evening.
evening, friends. Darren Bailey here tonight. It is the last day of September. Can you believe how fast the year has, or the year is flying by? So, we're honored to be here with you. Probably the first of many conversations. We're going to be raw. We're going to be open. We're going to answer questions. We're going to keep you updated throughout the campaign as things are happening, and we hope to be coming live to you several times uh, throughout this journey, just to kind of keep you updated on stuff. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of a heads up right now. If you see me rubbing my eyes, it's not because I'm tired, but it's because I've been in the bean fields today and I've still got bean dust in my eyes, and had a good day today. So the weather's beautiful, things are dry, farmers are getting along great. Um, so we're honored to be back on this journey, honored to be back on this trip, and I thank you so much for being right there with us. This throughout the last couple of years, there's just been encouragement from everyone. Hey, are you going to run again? You're going to do this again? And quite honestly, I didn't think that I was. I thought I was done enjoying life here on the farm, but as Cindy will tell you, and as I've testified to many of you already, there was just this tugging at my heart that something wasn't finished. I wasn't quite ready to walk away from this movement that we built. So we're looking at the situation in Illinois, and JB Pritzker's numbers are at an all-time low. The last 3 years, we didn't think things could get worse, but my gosh, they've gotten worse. We're now taxed more heavily than we were 3 years ago. Crime continues to be rampant in our streets. Our children, our education system continues to fail. Energy prices are going out the roof. Property taxes are at an all-time high. Nothing is gaining any attention from this governor. He continues to oppress us. So as as we consider that, it became obvious that we needed to do something. I couldn't just walk away and leave this grassroots movement that you helped us build. So um, as Cindy and I sat right here in my office early one Sunday morning and began to kind of talk about all the what ifs. I kind of surprised her because I told her, I said, Cindy, I can't let this feeling go, this calling that I think that we have to do this. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but something tells me that we need to step out and do this. So we didn't tell anyone anything about what we were thinking. And that next week, as the next week came, people just started. It was more so that people began to step up and say, Darren, are you running again? We need you to run. But then there was something else that got added. Darren, you need to run again, and you need Aaron Delmar as your running mate. And I said, well, I am thinking about running, but that second part, that's just simply not going to happen, because if you haven't noticed, I've been at odds with this guy. So he's from Cook County, so he thinks a lot different than we do. So finally, after about a week and a half, a good friend said, Darren, these differences that you talk about with Aaron, have you ever talked to him about those differences? And he kind of caught me by surprise, because I said, well, no, I haven't. And I know that when we have differences with people, we're supposed to have that conversation with them. So that call was made. Cindy and I were going to an event in Chicago, and I said, hey, I'll stop by. Let's talk for 30 minutes. I just thought it was going to be, I was going to fill my duty of talking to him. But I'm going to tell you something. He's going to talk about some of this evening. That meeting lasted almost 4 hours, and everything was put on the table. And I've got to tell you, I was humbled and I was embarrassed that I had repeated things and said things that simply were not true. And to hear the strategy and the brilliance of a Cook County politician, and because it's a different world up there with politics, and it became apparent very quickly that Aaron Delmar was the missing piece that we needed to connect Cook County with the rest of the state of Illinois, and that's exactly what we're doing. That's how we're going to win this election. And Aaron has already brought people to the table that our campaign would have had no contact with, and we're really excited about this journey. So I'd like to I want to give the mic over to Aaron. I want him to tell his story, and a little bit later in the comments, if you've got questions, you type them in, and we'll address them. And there is literally nothing off the table, and you're going to be shocked and surprised afterwards about what you hear from Aaron. So, Aaron, do what you
Thank
did
you.
already on the campaign trail, and tell the people who Aaron Del Mar is, because I am looking so forward to working with you.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope you don't mind the backdrop over here of all. We're getting ready for Halloween at the Del Mar house. We have 6 kids. 2 of them have already graduated college that are 22. We have 2 kids in college, one at Oakton here in the northern part of the state, one at the University of Iowa. And then we have a daughter who is a senior at Friend High School. And then we have our youngest daughter who is going to be turning 10 and is in 4th grade. So the Del Mar house is very big, and we take holidays very seriously around here. So we do a great job of decorating and getting it in the house to get that holiday feeling. To kind of curtail into what Darren said, when I got the phone call from Darren's campaign saying, "Hey, Aaron, we're very much interested in having you be a part of our campaign. Would you run with Darren?" And I jokingly said, "Sure, he can be my running mate." And they're like, "Well, that's not exactly what we're thinking." And I said, "Well, I appreciate being considered, but the answer is going to be no." And they said, "Well, Aaron, could you at least just give it some thought?" And I said, "You know what? I've thought about it, and the answer is still no." And I asked him, I said, "Well, what did Darren say when you brought this idea to him?" And he said, "Darren said no too." And I said, "Well, there you go." And I hung up the phone and I talked to my team, because for those of you that don't know me, I was considering to run for governor on my own. I had my running mate already picked out. We had our petitions. We had our campaign infrastructure getting built out, website, everything you could think of. And when I talked to my campaign manager, I said, you hear the guts in these guys? They want me to put my own race aside, and they want me to run with Darren as his lieutenant governor candidate. And for some of you remember, in 2022, I was Gary Rebine's lieutenant governor candidate, and Darren took a pretty big beating to us in that primary, along with the rest of us. And there were some hard feelings there. And Darren and I had kind of been on the opposite side of things. But he said he was going to come up to Chicago, and we talked. And when Darren and Cindy sat down with me, I said, "Look, if we're going to explore this opportunity, we need to be incredibly transparent. And you guys are, God-fearing people. You're incredibly polite, but this is one of those times that we have to put the politeness aside, and you have to ask me uncomfortable questions, things that, Darren, that you've said about me in the past that maybe you don't have uh, the whole story about. You don't have the background regarding it." And we had a really, really robust, it'd be the way that I talked about, conversation about who I am, where I came from, my history, and my background. We talked about my faith. We talked about our conservative beliefs. And after those 4 hours, Darren and I really understood that there was a lot more in common that we had than we had apart. And it took a bit for me to put my ego aside and put our differences aside, and Darren too, to say, "Hey, what is the main goal?" The main goal is to have the winning team in November of next year, and that's to beat JB Pritzker. And I can't think of another team that may be unconventional like Darren and I are, because Darren's from way down south and I'm from way up north. But we bring a unique perspective from both sides of the state. And when Darren ran in 22, I was giving him some constructive criticism. I said, "Darren, one of the things I felt like you were missing is that you didn't have somebody from up north have a seat at the table to make sure that our issues in Chicago and the Collar counties and Cook County, our concerns were being heard. And you had a really strong perspective of central and southern Illinois, but you really didn't understand what it was like for us and what was important to our voters." And he said, "Aaron, over the last 3 years, I've been thinking about all the great things that we had in our campaign, but I've been thinking a lot and praying a lot about the things that we didn't do so well." And we kind of talked about that. And I thought, man, it takes a lot for somebody, one, to put their feelings aside, but two, to even say that, "Hey, I did some things wrong." Not a lot of people can admit to that. And I thought that really showed a lot of Darren's character and development and growth, and that he really wants to be able to lead our party and to lead Illinois. And I was a little bit inspired by that, and I was excited about joining the team, and I am excited about it. Darren and I launched a couple of days ago. It was incredible. We had over 600 people joining us at our last stop. We had some great speakers. We really got the excitement going. We had a couple stop tour, and our fundraising has really been picking up. And for those of you at home that are watching us, we had over 3,000 people to date, right? sign up on the new website, baileyforillinois.com, and register to be on our email list and to volunteer. And when Darren said, "Hey, we got 3,000 people registered," I'm like 3,000 new people, not from before. And he said, "No, these are fresh people that, I mean, some of them, know of us, but they weren't all registered." That's a movement. I don't think that any of the other candidates that are running against us, and let me be clear, the other candidates that are in this primary are not our enemy. They're our friends. We may have a disagreement of who we think is best to lead Illinois, but I look at our other two opponents. Um, it's just like I would any kind of wrestling match or athletic event. We shake hands. We have our little compare and contrast, but at the end we shake hands again and we're friends. So if any of them are watching out there, I look forward to working with you no matter who wins, because that's really the goal. And Darren and I talked about it. We want to unite our party. We want the North and the South, who have had a lot of regional issues in the past, because we are different. Illinois is geographically, financially, economically different in so many different ways. The agriculture that Darren has exposed me to and talking to me about farming and learning what yields were. I didn't know what a yield was. And me talking about Darren, I'm like, hey, man, up by us, public safety is an issue. People are literally getting shot, going to school, getting groceries, trying to get to work. Education system's broken down here. The affordability that he goes, Aaron, it's unaffordable to live down in Clay County. So we found things that were while we may be from different parts of the state, are the same message. And the second we came out with the success of our launch and had so many people engage, immediately the naysayers come out. And you've probably seen some of the negative stuff on social media if you're following it. People are starting to attack Darren and I. And I don't think they're doing it because they want to build our party. I think they're trying to do it because they want to break our party up. They don't want to see that unity. And some of that's from the Democrats, of course, playing to pretend to be Republicans. And that's some bad actors in our own party bringing up pictures of me from over 20 years ago, before I was a businessman, before I had my beautiful family, before I found my faith and really became a man. And that's what they want to talk about. They want to talk about who I was at 22, not the 47-year-old man that you see before you, who's completely flawed, but learned so much in those 25 years of what's right and doing what's right for my family. And so, when you're other people that are maybe aren't on the Bailey Delmar campaign right now, or are fresh to learning about our movement, I want you to see the two men that are totally followed in front of you, but understand of where we come from, what we've learned, how we've embraced the conservative movement, our values, our integrity, our character, because I really think that's what you're going to want in government in Illinois. People that are going to be honest with you, give you a straight answer if you like it or you don't like it. But that's one thing I think both Darren and I are committed to, is that we're signing up to be the leaders and to run for governor, lieutenant governor. And you have the right to ask us whatever questions you want. And you might not always like the answer, but it's going to be honest, it's going to be truthful. And you're going to see it not by our responses, but in our actions and how we move forward. So I hope that wasn't too much of a monologue. And, Darren and I are going to talk about some of our core issues.
No, that's perfect. Tell us what's going on in Chicago right now, Aaron. You're a lot closer than we are, but all this with federal troops coming to protect the ICE agents, and J.B. Pritzker continuing to spew his dangerous rhetoric, and Brandon Johnson failing to put police officers on the streets. What today's happenings? What do you know? What's going on right now up there?
Well, as the Cook County Republican chairman, we are the largest county in Illinois. We're the second largest county in the United States, and we have a whole set of unique problems, starting with the city of Chicago. But right now, what we're seeing here in Broadview, which is in my county, is we have an ICE facility over there that's really been under attack. And what the mainstream media is maybe not picking up on, or they're misconstruing, is they keep saying that the federal troops are attacking peaceful protesters. And that just really is not the truth. That's not factual. You know, I really believe in the First Amendment. We all do, especially in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And that freedom of speech is incredibly important to everybody in America, not just those that live in Illinois. And I encourage people that if you don't like what's happening in the federal government, if you want to be on the sidewalk, you want to chant, you want to hold posters up, you want to have your voice heard and your freedom of expression, I encourage you to do that. But when you start interfering with federal operations, when you start attacking and disrupting our federal troops and putting our federal troops really in danger. And that's really what struck the chord. It's the same model. It's the peaceful protesters. There's nothing peaceful about the protests that are going on there. If you're looking at some of the stuff that's coming out on social media, it gives you a better perspective, because a lot of the mainstream media is not covering it. And you have federal troops that are in here in Illinois trying to do their job. And they're trying to enforce legislation that has been pre-existing. It's been here for years. And I find it so hypocritical that the Democrats talk about, oh, immigration is such an issue. A lot of people forget for 4 years before Donald Trump in this last cycle, they had full control over the House, the Senate, and the White House. They could have made reforms. They could have made changes, and they didn't. And now, strictly, we're enforcing federal immigration law as it currently stands. And until Congress gets together and changes those laws or reforms those laws, we have an obligation to enforce the law. And unfortunately, our governor doesn't see it that way, and our mayor doesn't see it that way. They'd rather create more political rhetoric. They'd rather throw more gasoline on the fire, which really is putting our federal troops in danger to the point where the federal government has to come in and bring in more troops. And our president has to bring more people in Illinois. And it's said that, not only does the governor not take care of our own residents, but now they're not taking care of our guests, and they're in direct controversy with implementing federal law. And the peaceful protesters really aren't peaceful. They're not on the sidelines. They're engaging. They're creating it a military zone, and that's really what I think that we need to reform.
I agree. Thank you. People ask every day. I've been on several interviews today, and I know you have too. Well, what are you going to do? And I think our message is really simple. We're calling it affordability. With the property taxes. A lot of people across the state are paying their property taxes, and you're having to refinance your home in 10 years of paying your property taxes. That's wrong. It's ridiculous. I spoke with a gentleman the other day that his property taxes went up up in the Chicago area on a big warehouse building over 800%. I mean, it's nonsense. It's got to stop. And all these other taxes that have been combined upon us they're too much of a burden for the family in Illinois. So it's pushing business out. It's pushing the family out. Our children go off and get educated and find good jobs, and they're usually not here in Illinois. It's public safety, exactly what we're talking about. If J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson would have just sat down and accepted help or admitted there's a problem with President Trump, we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. We go back and we're all appalled at Labor Day weekend in Chicago when there were 58 shootings and 8 to 13 people killed. Even this past weekend, there were 11 shootings and 4 people killed. Something that I'm not seeing on the news, Washington, D.C. Remember the National Guard came in and the Democrat mayor even thanked President Trump for the help about a month ago. No shootings whatsoever over the past 2 weeks. So right there's your proof in the pudding that things are getting done and that peace and order can come to Chicago. Our education system is absolutely failing, and we've got to do a much better job of doing this. So we're going to delve into these details on some programs later and let you exactly how we're going to address property taxes, how we're going to address taxes in general, how we're going to address safety, and how we're going to address our education system across Illinois. So did you have anything you wanted to add, Aaron?
Yeah, there's really 2 points that I wanted to bring up that maybe some people that are following us from Southern Illinois don't know. The first one is regarding property tax. And what's happened in the city of Chicago, because so many businesses have moved out, it has created so many of these empty skyscrapers that we have where businesses have not moved back in. They've been chased out by all the taxes of the city of Chicago and by the state. And so what happens is when these businesses and these giant skyscrapers are empty, it has a ripple effect. The rest of the businesses around them, the places that you grab lunch, the places you grab dinner after work, they're empty. Those businesses are now failing, and then they become empty. And when these places are empty, the evaluation that they get for the property tax, they're no longer as valuable anymore. So that valuation goes down and their percentage of property tax goes lower because they're sitting vacant. Then that burden gets shifted to regular day people like you, me, and everybody else. We have to pick up that burden because the business is left. And that's where a lot of our property tax increase is happening. So you get the ripple effect of people moving out of the state, businesses moving out of the state, creating vacancies, devaluating the real estate that's there, shifting the economic burden to residential instead of being on business. And then we all having to have to pay more. On top of that, the costs associated with our utility bills and electricity bills and energy, of course. Nobody's doing anything to lower those when you have businesses that can't survive. And probably the second point, Darren, that you brought up is the education system. I think a lot of people really should know that in the big, beautiful bill that was just passed by President Trump, there was a carve out for education. Here in Illinois, and especially where I live down here in the Cook County area, in the urban areas, there used to be a program where if you donated money, it was Empower Illinois, you donated money, you get a tax rebate, and then that money would go into a pool that would be distributed to kids that wanted to go to charter schools, homeschools, go to magnet schools, and provide a better education for a lot of people. Um, all that would take right now would be for JB Pritzker to send a letter to the White House and saying, we would like to be a part of that program. And immediately funds would come into the state of Illinois that would give way more opportunity to all of these students that live in a bad neighborhood that want to go to private school but can't afford it anymore because that budget was taken away. They could now afford to go whatever school they wanted to go in the system. But JB Pritzker is so beholden to the public teachers unions that don't want this because they feel like it's taken away from the public schools, um, that we can't do that. And we're taking away school choice from a lot of people. Those are dollars that could go to homeschooling. There's a lot of great people I know out here that do an amazing job of homeschooling and educating their children. There's a lot of private schools that give kids a better opportunity than the public school system. And it's really sad that our governor just does not want to cooperate with the federal government and put politics before people instead of the other way around. And you know, that's an untapped resource that people could elevate them, that we could educate them. Because Darren and I both believe that we have a responsibility for when we put our kids through the college program, wherever you live, whatever zip code you're in, that you have access to a quality education. So when you graduate high school in Illinois under the Bailey Delmar plan, whatever you go to, if you go into the military, if you go into the workforce, if you go into trade school, if you go to college, whatever it is, we want to make sure that you're prepared for that and you have the best foot forward. And that would hopefully keep a lot of people here in Illinois.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got a little over 100 comments. Are we? I are there any questions? A lot of encouragement on there, and I just want to reiterate, friends. There's a lot of people slinging mud and slinging trash, and when I chose Aaron after speaking with him, I realized that even the things that I stated about him were not true. He's got a genius mind for working in Cook County and how that all works, and it's a little unconventional. It looks different than it does down here, and we know that Cook County is just it's made up completely different, so it's going to have to operate different. So again, there is nothing in his leadership, nothing in his character that I found that Cindy and I would challenge or say that we can't partner with him. So anyway, anybody?
I'll tell you that, Darren, there's a lot of shock value because, like I said, people are pulling out pictures of me from when I was in my early 20s, and I was completely flawed and made a lot of bad decisions. And I think the 25 years between then and now is garnered a lot of maturity, a lot of better understanding, a lot of better decision making. But I think the reason they do that is because I think people are afraid of the movement that we're creating. They're concerned
That they
about
are.
what happens if they're no longer relevant because the party's united. There's a lot of people that don't want to be united. And I
Yeah,
think that if people could see how you and I put our differences aside and put our ego
yeah,
aside for the people, sorry, that's my dog,
yeah.
putting our people aside, I think that shows that we can take a first step and really do a lot of great things for the state.
Exactly. So just, I mean, when we went to Palatine to Aaron's business, it's a big business and it's a nationwide business and a large promotional. It puts on a lot of 5K runs, does the hat embroidery, T-shirts, has an entertainment side where they put video games up and stuff on large corporate organizations. What really shocked me with this large warehouse building when I put up, and this will mean a lot to the people in downstate Illinois, was the left half of your building was decorated as a country insurance agent, and I couldn't believe that. I didn't know there was any country
That's right.
insurance agents at Cook County. So and when I asked Aaron about that, 2020 COVID shut his business down as he knew it. There wasn't anything going on. No one was having events. So instead of sitting and doing nothing, he went out, got his insurance business, and started this with country. And I think you said your son heads that up now. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've been a client of Country Financial and part of the Cook County Farm Bureau for over 15 years. During COVID, all my businesses were shut down. Our gym was shut down.
Okay.
We do a lot of 5Ks, we do races, and they're all shut down. And my friend said, "Hey, you like country, been with us? Why don't you get your insurance license and join up?" And I did, and built out my insurance company for 2 years, where we were recovering from that disaster. And then my son Connor has just joined the business. He just got licensed. He's fresh out of college from the University of Illinois. Very excited to have him on board. And we're doing things that we can try to help people, and that's
All
kind of
right.
like part of our DNA.
I got it. Thank you. I'm looking at one comment here. Guys, thank you. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your trust. Um, Dusty, where did I see yours? How would one Republican governor be any different than any other Republican governor? Um, so to your point, shouldn't we try to flip the House and the Senate first? Well, that's an interesting question. I'm going to ask. I'm going to, I guess, let you know. I guess, why am I here? I started off. I got ticked off at tax increases, and I was a state rep, and then sued J.B. Pritzker because no one else would do anything. So I stepped into that role, moved up to the Senate, was perfectly content there. And I'm looking around, and it's just like this place is still a mess. And we've got a billionaire governor. We've got a billionaire governor in J.B. Pritzker that has absolutely nothing in common with anyone on this thread. I don't know if he's watching or not. I hope he is. He'll have something in common with himself. But we've had two back-to-back billionaire governors that have nothing in common with anybody. So one of the things that I won't set silent. I mean, I've got a family, I've got grandkids, I've got businesses, and I didn't go up there just to have a position, enjoy my time, and get a special license plate on my car. I went up there to make a difference. So I found myself standing and speaking up against a lot of stuff. So good old Facebook, and especially with the COVID lockdowns. If you'll remember, in the month of April of 2020, I mean, I was online every day through the month of April 2020, and then that's where a lot of people found me. And then I began to use that. I'd be in the Capitol and the State House when these terrible, horrific bills were coming down, and I'd get up and I'd go outside and let you know, guys, you need to start calling your representatives and your senators because they're getting ready to vote on something, and it's bad. So this form of communication. I mean, I look at Bruce Rauner. Bruce Rauner got elected, and he immediately went to war against Mike Madigan. He immediately went to war against the unions, and he just hit a brick wall. So we've got to realize and understand that the 80% of the issues that all Illinoisans are having troubles with, and that's taxes, that's safety, and that's education. And we're going to communicate that. There will be things that we can do through executive order. There are going to be things that I truly do believe that I can bring Democrats in the room and have a conversation about, and come to some understanding. But at the end of the day, whatever we do, the state of Illinois, you're going to know about it. You're going to know about it through radio, TV, newspaper, press releases, and right here. So that way, if we do something and it gets rejected, you're going to be able to see who exactly is rejecting these awesome ideas that are going to lower our taxes, and put more police on the street, and correct our education. So that I really do believe. I mean, that again,
Turn
that
it
is
down, buddy,
why
okay?
I'm
Just
here.
turn it down.
So, is there any other? Maybe yeah, Aaron, you got a lot of support here of people who are saying that they've messed up too. They get it. And you just simply, if you would have done the right political thing, when you got involved in politics, you would have scrubbed your media, and none of that stuff would have been on there. But you left it on there, forgot about it, and people
Well,
pull these
in
pictures
my own
up.
defense, I was pretty. All those pictures were from a MySpace page. I don't know if you remember how far back that goes. We didn't even have Facebook at the time. It was MySpace. But to curtail on what Darren says, I think you have a unique group of the two gentlemen before you that bring a business sense, that bring myself, the Cook County suburban area. Darren brings, central and southern Illinois, understanding the agriculture and farming. But when you compare and contrast us to our other co-competitors, that's what I like to call them, co-competitors in this race, in this Republican primary, take a look at both people, right? When you look at them, you're like, are they ready to lead in Illinois in day one? Who's got more experience in the legislature than Darren Bailey, who was a state representative, a state senator, a candidate before? Both Darren and I have run statewide. I come from the most populous area of the group. I've served on all different levels, from local government all the way up. We have a message. We have a base of support. I've gotten a lot of feedback, positive feedback from our collar counties, Kane County, Will County, even some in DuPage, where I know we have a co-competitor in DuPage, McHenry County, Lake County. We're getting a lot of people on board with over 3,000 volunteers coming out of the gate. And Gary Rabine, who was my former running mate, has endorsed our campaign. If you can look on our website, you can make a donation. Gary, for the next 24 hours, is matching every donation that we get. If it's $1, if it's $10, it's $50, $100. Gary's going to match it up to $30,000. This is Gary's first drop. He's willing to do a couple more of these for us. He's been incredibly generous with us, and we're folding the Rabine Delmar team into it with a lot of leadership. We're going to start seeing a lot of our other elected officials joining our campaign as well, because they understand the movement that we're having. And to Darren's credit, he has really learned a lot. And people talk a lot about, well, what are you going to do differently? I mean, we're concentrating on the 80% of things that we all can agree on, the common sense issues, the things that are like where I'm sitting at the kitchen table. Those are things that we want to talk about. And when we're getting through all the different noise and all the other rhetoric, it really comes down to why J.B. Pritzker should be fired and Darren Bailey and Aaron Delmar should be hired. And I truthfully, I believe it's because we can do a better job. We can work with whoever we need to work with to better Illinois. We're not auditioning for a run for president, right? We're not doing that. We want to keep everything right here at home. We want to do best by our people. And it's a sense of servant leadership. That's really what I think would be a way to describe it. Servant leadership of where Darren is. And when you think about the qualifications of the two people for you against our co-competitors, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and I like very much, I think that you'll find that we can provide the best opportunity to win in Illinois. And because neither of our other competitors can take Southern Illinois and have those relationships like Darren has. And neither one of them will know what it's like to be walking on the south side of Chicago, what it's like to be in the urban areas of Chicago. They have a lot of great qualifications, and they're great. They're great people. But Darren and I have the best foot forward. And you're going to see the things that we're going to do over this campaign to show you that we're identifying with those concerns and those issues and how we're going to deal with them. And we're going to be very transparent. We want to take those questions.
Thank you very much. This is going to be the first of many more of these type of lives. So we'll try to advertise in the future. We've kind of put this one together hastily, but you can always go to baileyforillinois.com. Join us. Click on the volunteer link, and someone will get in touch with you where you live at and put you to work. And you click on the donation link, share that. Click on that donation link, copy paste it, and get it out there to people. And there's a link for a petition. We've got a few more weeks, so we're well on our way to having enough petition. I think some of the other campaigns are having to pay people to get petitions. We don't have to do that because of our wonderful grassroots of now 20,000 plus strong. The 15,000 that were 22, most of them are still there, and an additional 3,000 to 4,000 that have joined in the recent days. So don't forget, we're not even a week old from announcing. So lots of excitement. The journey is going to be awesome. I'm honored to have Aaron on as a partner. You're going to be seeing us all over the state. So continue to stay engaged, and we'll be doing more of these. So Aaron, any final comments?
Well, final comments. I'm honored to be a part of this team. You know what I mean? I'm glad that we were able to put together a movement that we can share with everybody, that everybody can be proud of. Can you imagine that for a minute? To be proud of Illinois again? I think that is something that Darren and I are really striving for as part of our campaign, being unified with the rest of our party. There's a lot of fracture in our party. In 2022, right, $150 million was spent during the Republican primary, and to what gain? We fractured our party. Darren and I are putting ourselves and our issues aside to build Illinois, to build a stronger base. And, from one of the questions you had earlier, what are we going to do about state reps and state senates? We're going to be working with all of them. We're going to be working with our incumbents. We're going to be working with our challengers to try to be able to get as many of our seats in there, because when it comes time to govern, we need all hands on board. So if you're at home and you're watching this and you're kind of on the fence, there's three things you could do. One is go to baileyforillinois.com, register to be a part of our email list, learn about what we're doing. Be a part of these events with us. If you want to volunteer and get petitions, which we could use right now, that would be great. If you want to donate, $5, $10, $20, that all helps. But more than that, let's get the word out and let's get excited about the opportunity that we have in front of us. We're running a professional, disciplined, data-driven campaign. and you're gonna learn a lot more about us too. And if you would like us to come out to your area, no matter where you are, if you're in Carbondale, if you're in Clay County, if you're in Coles County, if you're in Cook County, we want to come out to you. We're gonna meet out to you. We're gonna be the most active, transparent, faithful campaign that's out there in Illinois, and we are excited to earn your vote.
I love it. Thank you very much. We've got the grassroots team. So here's something else that's very important. Between now and November 1st, go to your county clerk's office and find out what positions are available. Find out if your precinct has an elected precinct committee person. And if they don't, go collect 10 signatures and run for it. Because the reason that we lost in 2022 is because we had a 45% turnout across the state. You hear it every day. My vote doesn't count. Chicago, it's rigged, blah, blah, blah. And people didn't show up. People waited until the day of the election. Sometimes they got sick. They got called to work. They forgot. This is our duty to straighten our country and our state up. And we have to vote to make that happen. And quite honestly, a 45% to turnout across the board is just it's a shameful to the men and women who serve to protect these very freedoms that now we have the right to uphold. So sign up as a precinct committee person so you can get out there in your precinct and inform your constituents of who's running. You can help with petitions, but most importantly, the day of election, you can be there and start watching your neighbors who didn't show up, and you're making phone calls as an election judge or a poll watcher. One of the most important constitutional positions is a precinct committee person. So let's fill every county seat up with duly elected precinct committee people. And that's how we as Republicans win, because quite honestly, you mentioned that earlier, Aaron, that Cook County is the second largest county in the U.S. behind Los Angeles County. Well, Cook County also has more registered Republicans than any county in the United States as well. So that's very impressive. It's got to put everybody to work. So thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to be, again, I don't know, I'm not sure if we're going to do one of these a week, if a news alert, something comes up, something with the campaign, a big announcement. But otherwise, we want to keep you informed, and we'll develop maybe a scheduled time when we come together and do this. So, Aaron, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Darren.
And to the guys behind the scenes making this happen, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing these messages and commenting. And thank you for your support. God bless you. Good night. And God bless the amazing state of Illinois. Thank you.